The setting itself was telling. William was not at a state banquet or a ribbon-cutting ceremony, but engaged in the work of one of his core charitable pillars: mental health, homelessness, or perhaps a visit to a community project supporting the bereaved. The context is crucial. It is in these spaces where raw human stories intersect with his official role that the boundaries most easily blur. He was likely listening as much as speaking, hearing testimonies that echoed in the private chambers of his own experience. The trigger may have been a story from a veteran struggling with PTSD, a mother speaking about loss, or a young person describing their isolation. In that story, he saw a fragment of a universal truth about suffering, but also, perhaps, a specific, piercing echo of his own past. The emotional charge of the moment stems from this collision: the dutiful prince, the healer-in-chief, meeting William the man who carries his own unhealed wounds. To understand the depth of his emotion, one must acknowledge the ghosts that perpetually share the stage with William. The most pervasive is the ghost of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. Her own revolutionary empathy, her ability to connect through touch and share tears, established a new blueprint for royal engagement with human suffering. William's moment was, in part, a direct inheritance of her emotional lexicon. He was not breaking protocol, he was fulfilling a maternal legacy, proving that strength and sensitivity are not opposites, but partners. Then there is the ghost of more recent grief, the loss of his grandfather, Prince Philip, the steadfast patriarch, and most seismic, the death of his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, the only constant in his public and private life. For a man whose life has been defined by duty and service, her passing was not just a familial loss, but the dissolution of his ultimate North Star. The compounded weight of these losses, often borne in the global spotlight with limited space for private mourning, creates a kind of emotional pressure cooker. Furthermore, the fractious relationship with his brother, Prince Harry, and the very public
unraveling of the Fab Four royal image represents a living grief, a loss of partnership, unity, and the future he might have envisioned for the family firm. When William speaks of isolation, misunderstanding, or familial strain, he does so from a place of profoundly complicated experience. His emotion, therefore, is never just about the issue at hand. It is the tip of a vast iceberg of personal history, making it feel earned and devastatingly authentic. We live in the age of authenticity, where polished perfection is met with suspicion and curated Instagram lives are prized over stiff, formal portraits. The monarchy, an institution built on mystique and distance, has struggled to adapt to this transparent new world. The crisis of the Sussexes' departure and their allegations highlighted the perils of an institution perceived as cold and unsupportive. In this climate, William's emotional display is a potent piece of nonverbal communication. It signals a crucial shift, vulnerability as strength. For a future king, showing emotion is a strategic recalibration. It says, I feel what you feel. I am not impervious. My privilege does not insulate me from pain. This is a revolutionary concept for an institution whose power has historically been rooted in divine right and stoic, unmovable permanence.
This moment was not a lapse in control, but a demonstration of a new kind of control, the confidence to be seen as fully human. It bridges the immense gap between palace and public. It builds trust more effectively than 100 perfectly executed walkabouts. In a single wordless gesture, a tightened jaw, a glistening eye, a paused breath, he communicated empathy more powerfully than any prepared speech. He was performing authenticity, yes, but the performance was built on the bedrock of genuine feeling, making it uniquely compelling. The public and media response to such moments is invariably complex and bifurcated. The sympathy narrative, a large segment of the public, particularly in the UK, receives these moments with an outpouring of support. Social media floods with comments praising his humanity, his strength, and his connection to his mother's legacy. It fosters a protective instinct, framing him as a man carrying a colossal burden with grace. This narrative strengthens his personal brand, and by extension, the monarchy's relevance. It makes the crown seem less like a remote institution and more like a family we are invested in, a modern soap opera with real stakes and real emotions. Conversely, a more critical eye is always cast. Some commentators and factions question whether such displays are appropriate for a future head of state, clinging to an older model of impassive Churchillian resolve. Others engage in more cynical parsing, wondering about the timing. Is this a deliberate distraction from a negative news cycle? Is it a calculated move to outflank the Sussexes' monopoly on the vulnerable royal narrative? This scrutiny is the inevitable tax on such public vulnerability. The shadow of Diana is ever present in this analysis. The media constantly measures William's emotional expression against his mother's, seeking a successor to the People's Princess title. His moment allows headlines to proclaim, "just like Diana," which serves both to legitimize his emotion and to trap it in a historical comparison. He must navigate honoring her legacy while forging his own distinct emotional signature as a man and a future king. From a psychological perspective, William's public emotion represents a conscious break from a multi-generational pattern often associated with the Windsor men: emotional restraint, sometimes interpreted as coldness or incapacity. This pattern, born of a specific upper-class, mid-20th century British upbringing, has had documented repercussions on familial relationships. By allowing himself to be seen in a state of emotional flux, William is actively rewriting the script for his father, King Charles III, who has himself shown more emotional range in recent years, and, most importantly, for his own children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. He is modeling that it is acceptable for men, for fathers, for kings-in-waiting, to feel deeply and to be affected by the world and their own histories. This is perhaps his most profound legacy, not just a more modern monarchy, but a more emotionally intelligent and resilient one, starting within the walls of his own home. He is practicing the very mental health advocacy he preaches, demonstrating that seeking help and processing grief is a continuous journey, even for a prince. This moment is a crucial data point in the long-term project of preparing William for the throne. The monarchy's survival hinges on its consent from the people, and that consent is now granted not out of deference, but out of perceived connection and shared values. A future King William who has shown his humanity is a king who is relatable. In times of national crisis, be it a terror attack, a natural disaster, or a period of deep division, a leader who can genuinely empathize and project shared sorrow is a leader who can unify. His emotion does not diminish his authority. It rebases it. His authority will stem not from fear or tradition alone, but from perceived authenticity and empathetic connection. It is a softer power, but in a fragmented, media-saturated world, it may be a more durable one. He is building a form of kingship that is pastoral, consolatory, and psychologically astute, preparing for a role that is as much chief comforter as it is constitutional guardian. Prince William's emotional update was far more than a fleeting news story. It was a concentrated expression of a lifelong journey, a journey marked by profound loss, intense public scrutiny, the burden of history, and the fierce desire to carve a meaningful path forward for both his family and his nation. It was powerful precisely because it was multi-layered, a personal catharsis, a strategic communication, a tribute to a mother, a lesson for his children, and a blueprint for a future king. In that crack in the royal facade, we did not see weakness. We saw the intricate machinery of a modern man preparing for an ancient role. We saw the weight of the crown and the heart of the man beneath it, and for a moment they beat in unison. That is the alchemy of modern royalty, not the denial of human feeling in service of the institution, but the integration of that humanity as the institution's very source of strength and renewal. The moment was powerful because it was real, and in a world saturated with artifice, that reality is the most potent currency a future monarch can possess.
In the meticulously choreographed theater of modern monarchy, where smiles are measured and waves are practiced, moments of unvarnished human emotion strike with the force of a lightning bolt. They cut through the fog of protocol, the gloss of press releases, and the distant sheen of celebrity, reminding a global audience of the fragile humanity behind the titles. Such was the profound impact of a recent public appearance by the Prince of Wales, William, who, while discussing a cause close to his heart, became visibly and powerfully emotional. This was not a staged tear for a poignant photo op, but a crack in the royal facade, a glimpse of the man beneath the mantle of future kingship. To simply label it an emotional update is to understate its significance. This moment became a cultural Rorschach test, a prism through which we can examine the evolving nature of leadership, the enduring shadow of personal trauma, the strategic calculus of a modernizing institution, and the public's aching desire for authenticity. This analysis delves into the anatomy of that powerful royal moment, exploring its precursors, its immediate resonance, and its far-reaching implications.